Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
Yo, what is the word? What are we doing today? The kids are in charge, and we are with the stat guy. We have no rules. We changed the color of everything. We're having a great morning so far. Sitting here with the stat guy. He's got his cool little shirt. We got Aman, who has a lot of explaining to do, and myself, if you don't know already. Sky Town, baby, let's go. We're rocking it today. Don't know where anybody is. It looks like mom and dad left. So the kids are in charge. We got stat guy, like I said. We're running it through just like this. I hope everybody's having an amazing morning. First, I'm going to talk to Stat Guy first, Amon, because I haven't talked to him in quite a while. Stat Guy, how is everything going for you?
It's going well, Mike. How are you? It's nice to see that you actually have a morning off to join us.
Oh, my God. I took a day off just because I wasn't feeling it. And I wasn't – yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. I was having a bad day at work yesterday, so I said, I'm done. So I'm here. I'm here for today and tomorrow. But yeah, we're enjoying it like that. It's great, guys. Aman, sir, I don't know where I just went, but how are you today?
I'm doing good, Mike. I get to see you. I got to see Stat Guy. What could be better than that?
Well, a Boston win. If you want to talk about it, we're going to jump right into it. The Boston Celtics dropped game 2, 107-88, a big blowout. Aman, if you want to take it, I know that's your team. That's where you reign. What happened to Boston?
We just got careless with the basketball. To be honest with you, we controlled most of that first half. You saw we went on runs early on in the first and second quarter, and then towards the back half, we turned the ball over, finished with 18 turnovers, and that's where the Golden State Warriors offense was hitting. Jordan Poole struggled in the first half. Klay Thompson struggled in the first half. Andrew Wiggins struggled in the first half. There really wasn't offense going for them until we started to turn the ball over. Their half-court offense yesterday for the Warriors was not very good. And we just kept them in it. And if you keep the Golden State Warriors in it, they're going to land some knockout punches. And Jordan Poole with the buzzer beater in the third quarter with a couple of long bombs, Steph Curry with the one from the elbow, that it was just going to happen at some point. We lost that game. We kept the Warriors in it, and they just landed those knockout punches.
For sure. And for you, it's one of those things before we go into Dustin. Klay Thompson, right now on DraftKings, I have $100 bet that says he's going to win Finals MVP, and he is royally screwing me. So with that being said, what is happening to Klay Thompson? A lot of people say, oh, it's just this year. He'll be 10 times better next year. But do you really think he's going to be 10 times better or his old self next year? Or is this kind of the Klay Thompson we're going to get used to where there's going to be nights where he drops 20, 30, but this is relatively what we're going to get from Klay?
Well, I think it's an interesting balance because coming off the Achilles, coming off a couple injuries is never easy. And then with Boston, they're a tremendous closeout team. We've seen it consistently. It's hard to close out. So Klay is not going to have the luxury just kind of stand up and shoot the ball. We've seen him kind of rush into some threes. I think in the second half, we saw him settle down and then start to drive, pump, and then drive into the lane, which he's going to have success with. I think he's got to find a new way to play basketball because, again, he's not the same man before the 2 injuries. I think he'll be just fine. I don't think he's going to fulfill your $100 bet, Mike, but I think for the next couple of years, he's going to be okay for Golden State.
I'm pretty sure it's already done. It's done. I mean, you've had a 13-point game, an 11-point game, and Curry's out here just chucking everything. So it's like it's over. Al Horford has a better shot at winning it right now than Klay Thompson, and it breaks my heart. But Stat Guy, for you, I wanted to throw in just a little bit of a sprinkle because I love asking you specific questions. Looking at the game from a rebounding perspective yesterday, there really wasn't any team in particular that I feel like out-rebounded anybody, even though obviously there are stats and it will tell you who out-rebounded who, but it wasn't that solidified of a game. Looney wasn't going crazy. Horford wasn't going crazy. The stats kind of just don't lie. And for you, why do you think this is such a balanced matchup for this team? And a lot of people were saying, we had a lot of people in the ASAP group chat saying that Milwaukee would have been a better series, but I do think this is the perfect matchup. For you, Stat Guy, when you look at a defensive playing, especially around rebounding, why is this such an even matchup?
Because both teams shoot a lot of 3-pointers. So you're going to get those long rebounds where you're going to have the smaller guards getting rebounds as opposed to kind of those bigger players in the paint when teams like to go on the inside. You also have the top 2 defensive teams throughout the entire postseason, with Boston being the number 1 defensive team, Golden State being the number 2 defensive team. So despite going with a much smaller lineup than what the Celtics use, and Golden State is a smaller team, just the way they play defense, the switching they do, the way they just kind of get after it on the ball, they're going to get their rebounds because they have a good defensive team for that reason. And if you look at position by position, you could obviously Golden State's got the edge at point guard. Curry's a better point guard than what Boston's going to throw out there.
Right.
Boston's got the edge at the forwards because Tatum and Jalen Brown are going to be better than Thompson and Wiggins. But then if you look at the 4 and 5, the 4 and 5 are pretty much even. I mean, Draymond Green and Al Horford are pretty much even. Green's a better defender, I think, but Horford's a better offensive player. And then whoever each team decides to use at their 4 is pretty much a toss because their 4s really aren't used that much anyways. So these teams really are basically top to bottom the most even teams that were left in the playoffs. They've been the 2 teams that have played the best in the playoffs defensively, and there's a reason why these 2 teams are in the finals. And for this series, it's going to go 6 or 7 games, and I don't think either team is going to have one distinct advantage over the other.
Right. And this is for both of you. Oman, I'm going to talk a little bit crap because I'm genuinely confused. I don't understand it. I'm not one of those guys that trashes on Tatum just to trash on Tatum. I'm very realistic about the situation at hand. I believe he's a top 5 player if he's consistent. But I don't think he deserves that Larry Bird award. And right now, I don't think he deserves the finals MVP praise for that specific reason of just remaining inconsistent. If this kid was consistent, oh my God, top 5 player. And I don't think anybody could have a conversation about it. But the biggest problem with me right now, when I look at Jason Tatum, I think Jaylen Brown, it's very similar. Dustin, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it again. It's very similar to the Chicago Bulls. Frankie. But when I look at the Chicago Bulls, obviously Zach LaVine, as of right now, on June 6th, so don't kill me if he comes out today and says he wants to be a Laker. But it's one of those things where I feel like Zach LaVine is the face of the franchise, as is Jason Tatum. But that number 1 option night in and night out is DeMar. And I feel like it's the same way with Jaylen Brown. For you, why is the disrespect of Jaylen Brown being that number 1 option, especially by a lot of Boston fans who will scream that it's, and I wish Pride was here because he'd be treating me right now, but I've seen a lot of Boston fans saying, no, it's Jason. But Jaylen Brown's the only one that's remained consistent throughout the entirety of the playoffs. And then you have Jason Tatum, who one night it's 10 points, the next night it's 40, then it's 12 points, then it's 28. Aman, can you kind of just speak to that and talk about where the Jason Tatum criticism should be and where it's too far?
Yeah, so I think the thing with Jason Tatum is we all see what he can be because he'll give you those 40, 50-point nights where you're just, this kid is going to be unreal. He gives you flashes of KD. He can go up against anybody because of his size, because of his length, because of his shooting ability. He plays tremendous defense. But as you said, he's inconsistent, and I think Boston fans have kind of settled back into that we understand where his weaknesses are right now in his game. Jaylen Brown is not the flashiest of dudes. I think that's why you don't see a lot of people talk about him as the number 1 option because he doesn't get a lot of the highlight plays. He's not really the one hitting a lot of the daggers. But when you need a bucket, he can go and get you that bucket. Oftentimes, Jason Tatum will go isolate, but if he's not getting the look he wants, all right, Jaylen, go take it. And that's, I don't really care what anyone else says. That's the beauty of this relationship is they understand if I'm not getting my look, my other guy's going to get it. It's a true 1-2 punch. Jason Tatum is clearly a first-team All-NBA player. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Jaylen Brown has gotten so much disrespect because he was taken with the number 3 overall pick. I don't think he's really had the transcendent performance anyone's been waiting for, but he is consistently a guy you can depend on to go get a bucket. Look at last night. Didn't have the greatest of second halves, but whenever Boston needed a bucket, they kept trying to get to him. So, again, there's a give and take with both of these guys. I think both deserve, I don't think Jaylen Brown's the most consistent guy in the world either. I've seen him have great nights and then very poor nights, but both guys are a big part of this Boston Celtics team, why they're having success, and it's going to come in spades. You have to take the good with the bad with both guys.
For sure. And now, Frankie, my boy, how are you doing down there?
What's going on, guys? Mike, I'm so glad to be here with that beautiful face of yours.
Oh, stop it. It's too kind. Frankie, I want to get your take on it. Last night, if you can kind of get into it, what happened in the Boston Warriors game?
Where did Boston come? Like, where were they? They didn't show up for game two. I don't know what happened. They had an amazing game one comeback just to pull a Dallas Mavericks game two where they got blown out in the third quarter alone. Like, that's where it turned around. Because what I'm looking at, the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors literally were close first and second quarter by 1 point each. And then the Golden State Warriors just outscored Boston 35-14 in the third. So I don't know what happened with Tatum, with Brown, Smart. I don't know what happened. I don't know if like the Celtics might be just too tired after back-to-back Game 7 series against Milwaukee and then the Miami Heat. And then, it showed in Game 1 that they weren't, how should I say it? Well, I'm going to go ahead and say it. In Game 1, you could see that they were tired. But something pushed them in the third quarter in the second half of Game 1 where they just turned it around and ended up, blowing Golden State out of the water. But Game 2, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, everyone, they were like, no, we're not losing back-to-back games at home. No way, no how. If that was to happen, we will be looking at a different matchup in Boston. Maybe Boston can take a 3-0 lead and then Golden State wins one in Boston coming back to San Fran. I don't know. But I'm glad that Golden State won because I'm right now, I hopped off the Boston train, Mike. I was riding the Boston train with pride all through the playoffs. I was riding with them. But I'm off the Ahmad, you got to understand, I'm a Lakers man. I'm a Lakers guy. So I didn't want to see all those, I didn't want to see I hate KD. Everybody knows the hate I have for KD. I hate KD with a passion. So I'm glad he was gone. Then the Bucks came. I didn't want to see the Bucks back in the championship. We just saw them last year. I didn't want to see them again. The hell with the Bucks and the Giannis and Chris Middleton and stuff. So I'm glad that the Bucks did that. Then when they went to face Miami, everybody knows I hate Miami. Miami is a hot heat garbage team. They're trash. They're trash. Jimmy Butler is literally the only superstar on Miami. I don't care what anybody says. He's the only superstar in Miami. Mike, I'm sorry. He just didn't show up that late in the Celtics game. That's because he was hurt and he was doing everything by himself. Because Miami.
We're not going to do that, Frankie. We're not going to do that. It was perfectly fine. It was a great game. And then a 9% three-point shooter on the second half of the season decided that, he was just going to shoot the game-winning three-point shot when, Al Horford was on skates. We're not going to – it wasn't injuries. He wasn't tired. He was perfectly fine. It was a horrible shot. Jimmy, I love you. You've been my dog, my road dog since 2012, but that was bullshit. We're not doing that. That was awful. That was god awful. Stat guy, I need you to find me the statistic of Jimmy Butler's three-point shooting the second half of the season, and then we'll just leave it there.
18.7%.
It was what?
18.7%.
Thank you, sir. In what world is that shot okay? I'll take Tyler Hero and his torn injury. I'm gonna say injury because I heard what was torn and I can't say that on air. But I'll take that over Jimmy Butler shooting that three perfectly healthy. We're not doing that today, Frankie. He's not getting the pass. He's not. It's not.
That's
happening.
fine. Okay. All right. He's not getting the pass. Jimmy Butler, you're trash. Then you're going into the trash bucket with Miami. Whatever. Until you leave Miami, then you could become a superstar again. But as long as you stay in Miami, you're going to be in the hot trash garbage dumpster that Miami's in.
But
Frankie's just projecting a little bit right now. He saw the Lakers having to keep Russell Westbrook. He's just projecting a little bit.
100%.
Oh, no. Listen, I'm a diehard Laker fan, man, but when it comes to being an NBA fan, I'm totally, whatever. The Lakers want to keep Russell, let them keep Russell. They're gonna struggle, they're gonna stress, they're gonna piss me off next year. Let them. I guess they love to piss me off. That's fine.
Oh, 100%.
But as long as we can get other players around Russ and then contribute well and have a healthy AD, not a broken ankle, glass shattered leg AD or an old school LeBron. Like LeBron, you're gonna wear number 6. I expect you to be Miami Heat. Don't wear number 6 and then look like Cleveland Cavaliers early in your or late in your prime. Like I don't want that. I want Miami Heat LeBron. I want you to drive into the hole. I want to see some dunks from the free throw line. Like, I don't even care. I want to see Superman LeBron.
Right.
But
I do want to
this-
ask you this though, Frankie, real quick, and it's for everybody there. A big part last night, Jordan Poole, I think, is a big part of it, and PTSD is one of my favorite nicknames for a lineup ever. You got Poole, Steph, Thompson and Draymond, to make PTSD, and resurging him into the lineup with them, I feel like was a big part of why they won that game. And for you guys, how do you truly feel about Jordan Poole being in that starting lineup and coexisting with Steph and Klay?
Yeah, it's totally a big help because he not only did he help with the starters, but he was the only one showing up on the bench. So it's a big help to have someone on your bench be a leader for your bench squad.
Right.
Compared to, we already know what Curry and what Thompson, what Green, Wiggins, we all know what they're going to do. But as long as you have that factor of someone on a bench that could come out and be like a superstar caliber player, then you're totally flying. It just shows that you got someone that's backing you up to contribute and keep the lead instead of putting your bench in, and then next Boston just comes out of nowhere and just dominates your bench. And then you got a close game and you got to bring in your starting lineup again to where you got to not have them rest and get them more tired. I don't know. But it's a good thing. Poole stepped up really big for Golden State last night. He wasn't really that well shooting, but he got 17 points for them, and that's what they need. You need at least 20. To me, if you score 20 points, you're good. You're good.
Amon, how do you feel about it? Not that he's starting, but more of the fact of when he is on the floor with those guys, how do you feel about it?
Well, it's big for them, and because we saw Robert Williams go down for the Celtics yesterday, now Kevon Looney can come out of that lineup if you want to, and you can plug in Poole. He has that playmaking ability that we saw yesterday. He had a couple of times where he was driving inside, found the open man who was cutting to the basket. So his resurgence as a playmaker is so big for them because now you have someone who isn't just a spot-up shooter. You have someone who can create beyond Stephen Curry, which is what they were kind of missing off of the bench. And now with Gary Payton getting healthy again, you have another spot-up shooter. If Jordan Poole continues to handle the ball, continues to make plays, you're going to see a lot more guys get space, get separation. It's exciting for the Golden State Warriors. As a Celtics fan, I don't like to see him continue to make these plays, but he's going to continue to make them and be a thorn in the Celtics side all the way throughout the series.
100%.
Did anybody else see the three that he shot from the Golden State bridge? Like, that was insane.
I saw it live. I said, we can come back from that. He hit it. I said, no, we're good. It's done. Done deal.
Right. No, 100%. 100%. Stat guy, how you feel about it?
Jordan Poole should have been in the starting lineup basically since that first series. And you saw it during that first series when Curry was coming off the bench. Curry was still giving you 25 to 30 points a night off the bench. And if you're going to get that from him off the bench and then you're going to get your 25, 30 points from Poole off the bench, you need to figure out how to get those three guys to coexist, Poole, Curry, and Thompson. And right now, honestly, Thompson should be coming off the bench.
I'm glad you said that second. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just about to ask you after when you're done, do you think that Poole should be in the starting lineup over Klay because of how Klay is showing his playing ability in the playoff series?
Yeah, right now I do it. I said that during the first series, too, that everyone was kind of throwing a fit that Curry was coming off the bench. I'm like, Curry hasn't been playing that well the second half of the year, plus he was coming off that injury right before the playoffs.
Right.
And Steve Kerr was riding the hot hand in Jordan Poole because Jordan Poole had the hot hand in that first series.
Right.
Right now, your best player is Curry, and your second best player is Jordan Poole. Those two need to be in the starting lineup, and you need to have Klay Thompson come off the bench because even if he comes off the bench, he can still give you 15 to 20 points a game off the bench.
Right.
And there's not too many teams in the NBA that have somebody that can come off the bench and give you 15 to 20 points. So it's really not going to affect Golden State's offense at all to have Thompson come off the bench. And right now, maybe not for the duration of the series, but at least for games 3 and 4, I would put Thompson off the bench and have Poole start.
Yeah, I agree. I think a part of it, though, especially like you said, Curry was injured. They were slowly weaning him back in. So that's a big part of why he was coming off the bench. But I think more so when you look at who Steph is and what Steph can do consistently, I think Klay is a liability if he's the leader of that bench. Obviously we know what Klay can do, but the space that Klay is in right now, who's to say he's not going to average 9 points off the bench? Who's to say he's not going to average 11 to 15 points off the bench, which isn't horrible, but it's definitely not the leader of the bench where Curry's out there dropping 30, getting Gary Payton and company hyped up. I think with Curry off the bench, that's unstoppable. The guy can drop 50 if he wants to off the bench. Where with Klay, it's like you might get the same product you have him on the starting rotation. And at least in the starting rotation, you have a nice setup where – he doesn't need the ball. He can do a lot of other things, where if he's on the bench, he needs to be the best defensive player. He needs to be the number one option. There's a lot more pressure for Klay on the bench rather than in that starting rotation because, you don't have to do as much. You have Draymond out there playing great defensive ball. You have Looney getting rebounds. You have Wiggins doing kind of everything, which is a shocker of me to ever admit because I'll never give that kid his flowers. And then you have Curry obviously and Poole being those first options. So you look at Klay, putting him on the bench, I feel like is a lot more pressure because he's that number one option and solidifying that number one option.
I can see that, yeah, but I don't know. If it gets to a situation the way that it is right now, who do you want to – if it gets – let's say the series is tied 2-2 and you have those final 3 games, you're going to want your best 3 players or best 5 players on the court for those final 3 games.
Right.
Right now, Thompson is not one of those best 3 players.
No, I'll tell you what. I'll give him 3, 4, 5, and 7 for Jordan Poole to start. But game 6, just because
Game 6
repeats itself, Klay needs to start game 6 because that just I'm a very got the word for it, but I believe in things. I'm superstitious. I'm very superstitious, so I do believe game 6 I would start Klay. But Stack, out of your point, I do think Jordan Poole should be starting the rest of this series.
Yeah, and if you look at last night too, a big reason for the way the third quarter unfolded, Golden State has the best scoring team in the third quarter in the NBA, and Boston sits around 23.
Right.
Golden State's been plus 11 in the third quarter of the entire playoffs. Boston's been minus 3.
Right.
That's a 14-point difference in the third quarter where if Golden State does what they normally do and Boston does what they normally do, chances are Golden State's going to outscore Boston by double digits in the third quarter of this whole series.
Right. Now, we do have one last topic about this game because we can go on all day about it. But right now, this one is for Amon specifically, and then we will go around the horn. Frankie, Lennon, welcome to the show, my guy. And Dustin, for you, Amon, are you worried about Boston right now? Is it something to be concerned about, or are you just taking it game by game?
I'm taking it game by game. I'm not worried because Boston did their job. They won. They took one in the Chase Center. That was the biggest question. Can we win one in Golden State? And we did. The wounds from last night are self-inflicted. It's the turnovers. Yes, Golden State was great on the ball, but we were very careless, making some awful passes. Marcus Smart was trying to do too much with the bounce passes. I don't know if he thought he had a dream and he was Magic Johnson or something, but he was just not. He's not that guy. So I think Ime is going to come out and say, look, here's the things we did wrong. Here's the adjustments we make. And we've seen Boston make adjustments time and time again. I'm not worried. As I head back to Boston, I think Boston's going to be just fine. It's one game. Its series is 1-1. I think that's the one thing we have to remember coming into today. It's not 2-0. It's not the worst case scenario. It's 1-1. We're even going into game 3. It's a dream situation for any Boston fan. I'm not worried.
100%. Frankie, how you feeling, my boy?
I mean, I wouldn't be worried. It's like a 50-50 shot, right? I mean, you can be worried, but you shouldn't be worried. I mean, you should be worried because of look what Golden State did in game 1. Like, if they continue to do that, then this is going to be over in the next 3 games. But I wouldn't say that it's over because Boston Celtics has a history of winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. So, like, this series is just equally matched up, and it's going to come down, honestly, to either a game 6 or a game 7. And one of these teams, when it comes down to it, one of these teams are going to lose the series at home. So, like Ahmad said, the Celtics shouldn't be worried. They did what they needed to do. They won one in Golden State. Now they need to just win one at least in Boston. It would be better for them to win 2 in Boston, but I wouldn't count the Celtics out. I wouldn't. If I was the Boston Celtics, I wouldn't push the panic button yet. Go back, watch films. We have 2 more days before Game 3. So watch your films. Get together, practice, see what you guys did wrong, see what you guys got to do right. Like Ahmad said, they lost Rob Williams, so maybe they got to look at it like, okay, who's going to step up for him now that he's gone. And then I got to say, guys, I think it's really quickly that they brought him back to play. Yeah. Like, I understand he was like saying, like, I'm ready to come back. I can come back. But once you came back during the Milwaukee series, you played well, and then you sat the next game because you were hurt. So when I seen that, if I was the Celtics, I would have said, listen, we're going to sit you for this series, maybe one game for the next series if we make it. And then if you're okay, we'll put you in. I think they put him in too quickly. Now he's hurt. Now it's possible that he's not going to play the rest of the series. And if he don't, then Boston Celtics might not be the champions, guys.
100%. 100%. Lennon, how you feel about it?
Honestly, I feel like Steph and Golden State's going to run away with this. I feel like they've sort of kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I feel like they've got the Boston Celtics number with the way that Curry plays. I mean, because, Curry doesn't have to have the ball 100% of the time to make an impact. And maybe I know Jason Tatum can maybe contain him somewhat, but overall, I feel like this series is pretty much over for Boston.
I'm more in that kind of dynamic of I think this goes 7. I think at the end of the day, there's going to be nights where Jordan Poole gives you 9 points. There's going to be nights where Al Horford doesn't do anything. And there's going to be nights guys like that pop out as well. So I definitely think it's a 7-game series. And honestly, it's just, for me, it's going to come down to, who's going to get that last lick in. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think the last person who, if we could say it's an 8-game series or a 9-game series, I think whoever's on the wrong end of the stick is going to be like, man, I wish we would have had one more game just to run it back, because neither team is as consistent as we all think. Golden State just does it at a very higher level in the second half of games, and I feel like that's a big part of how they've gotten as far as they have. But Stat Guy, for you, what do you got going on in a 7-game series, or is this going to be over a lot earlier than expected?
Boston needs to worry about the plus 35. Otherwise, the series is going to be over quick. And if you look at it, through 2 games of this series, Boston's been outscored by 35 points in the third quarter. And that goes back to the whole thing where Golden State's the best scoring team in the third quarter and Boston's one of the worst, where if these two teams are kind of back and forth throughout the first half, if Golden State does what they do in the third quarter, Boston's in trouble, because I do not see Golden State playing as bad in the fourth quarter as they did in Game 1 again.
Right.
That fourth quarter in Game 1 that Boston put on them and outscored them 40-16, I don't see Golden State going through another quarter like that again. So even if these teams are pretty much neck and neck the other 3 quarters, if Golden State does what they typically do in the third quarter, this series could be over in 5 games.
100%. 100%. Chris Gonzalez, my brother, Gonzo. What is the word, my friend?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
We're just talking a little bit about Boston and Warriors. And before we get off that topic, I did want to get your take. For you, if you're Boston, are you worried right now? And for a 7-game series or less, what do you have it going?
I'm still going with Warriors in 6. That's what I said before the series started. I think I agree with what Dustin just said. I think Boston's in trouble because they just go in too many scoring moles where they don't score. Right. And against a team like Golden State, you can do that. You don't score for 2 or 3 minutes, you can be down 20 in a blink of an eye. And I don't see the Warriors playing as bad as they did in that fourth quarter. I mean, the Warriors controlled most of that Game 1 and blew it. And then if they can keep it close in the first half, and then I think the Warriors will win the game in the second half, especially in that third quarter. I have the Warriors still winning in 6.
100%, 100%. Now, Aman had a topic today that is my favorite topic because I don't understand it. I like the kid. I don't hate him. I want it out there right now. I don't hate the kid. I like him. I think his game is evolving. I think he's going to be a lot better than expected. Jaylen Brunson, whose name I didn't know was Jalen for 90% of this season. I just knew him as Brunson. But with that being said, there's this expectation of Jaylen Brunson getting an $85+ million contract deal this offseason. I want to go around the horn real quick. And first, I'll give my take on it because I'm pretty biased. When I look at this right now, I look at Duncan Robinson. And I think of Duncan Robinson. I think of what he did in the 2020 finals in the bubble. He went off, got that big contract, $90-something million contract. He was going crazy. He looked like the Splash Brothers. Him and Tyler Hero were on a different level, the white Splash Brothers. It was amazing. I was so happy. As a white kid who only shoots threes, I was the happiest kid in the world. Kyle Korver's gone. JJ Redick's gone. I finally had something to be proud of. And then both of those individuals have just completely fallen off. Tyler, just a little bit with the injuries. But Duncan has just been nowhere to be found, just from DNPs to just, healthy scratches and stuff like that. It's just a bad look. And I feel like they paid him way too early because of what happened during that finals appearance and during the playoffs in general. For you guys going around the horn right now, is Jaylen Brunson worth an $85+ million deal, even though he's never even averaged over 16 points per game? For you, Aman, right now, are you giving him $85 million if you're any team in the league?
I'm not sure if I could, because again, is it consistently enough for me? Because we talked about Jason Tatum not being consistent. Jalen Brunson falls in that same kind of category where the consistency isn't there. He's not necessarily is going to be your game-changing piece. He's a good role player to have, and if you're Dallas, you don't want to lose him. So I think they'll end up paying him 85 because I think there's going to be some other team that's just going to throw money at him, and they don't want to lose him. But I don't know if I would pay him because, again, he's not going to change my life. He played well in the playoffs, had a couple of big games. But to me, again, it's more about I think he's going to get 85 just because Dallas is going to be so afraid to lose the potential that he has. They're going to lose him, and then Luke is going to be all on his own. I think they're going to try to go and pay him. But, again, out of the production I've seen, there's promise. There's no doubt about it. There's promise that we could look back at this a year and be like, man, 85 was a steal. Now he's worth 100, maybe 200 million, whatever. But, again, at this moment in time, I just don't feel comfortable throwing $85 million at Jalen Brunson.
100%. Frankie, my boy, how you feel about Jalen Brunson?
Bro, you guys are being all nice, and I understand why because of Freddie and ASAP. But listen, I'm me, and I don't give two shits, all right? If Freddie's going to be pissed off at me, then call me into the principal's office at the end of the show. But I'm going to say what I want about Jalen Brunson right now, and he don't deserve jack shit. I wouldn't give him that money. That's insane. He didn't show up this year for Luka. Luka needed backup. He needed help. Where was Brunson when it happened? He did not show this year. Now, if Mark Cuban give this guy 80+ mil, then Mark Cuban, you've been sitting on the Shark Tank chair for too long, my brother. Like, you need to get up, stop investing your money on all these stupid investments that are coming on Shark Tank, because I'm watching Shark Tank and they're all stupid. Okay, dumb as hell.
Hey, there's a couple of them though where I'm like, I could use that, I could use this, but 90% of them are so bad.
It's bad, like. And then Mark Cuban is sitting there on Shark Tank, and he literally he opts out of all these investments. Then why are you sitting there if you're not going to invest in any of this?
Right.
Take your ass back to being an owner. Look at your team and get Luka some damn help. Brunson's not the answer. The man is shooting at 11.6 points for a career. That's a career alone. This year he shot at 16.3. Congratulations. That's the most you shot in your career. Congrats. But you still did not help Luka. You did not help him when he needed it. So if I was Mark, get rid of Brunson and look for some other help. I don't really care. I don't care. Yeah, I said it. Get rid of Brunson's ass. If you want, we'll give you Russell Westbrook. He'll help. He'll help Luka more.
Don't act like that was a nice offer. Like you were being generous.
That's the biggest steal in the world. Oh my goodness.
No, I do agree though, Frankie. In terms of like, I look at situations, and I look at a big part of it is what's going on. What else is going on in the league now? Brunson, stat guy, if I'm correct, is like 25 years old. $85 million isn't too bad. It's one of those situations for me to where Luka needs someone consistent, and Luka needs someone who's already solidified themselves in the role that they are. A little bit older, I feel like, is the case. Not older than Luka, but just older than Brunson when it comes to experience. And that's where I do see a sign and trade. Definitely not Russell Westbrook. But I think one that's very interesting to me, and it might be my bias, but I don't think we win the trade either. I think Dallas wins the trade by a mile is Zach LaVine. I think 2 sign-in trades with Zach LaVine and Jalen Brunson, we get Jalen Brunson and probably Powell or something. It all depends on the situation of the Chicago Bulls and what happens with that. I think Obviously if there's better trade offers, if there's a Julius Randle or a Mitchell Robinson type offer from the Knicks or whatever the situation may be, if the offers aren't out there and the Bulls can't just have Levine walk, I think they definitely take Jaylen Brunson because they're short on opportunities right now for what they're going to be able to do to keep this team content. And I think it's the same conversation with DeAndre Ayton as well. I've heard some people say they think DeAndre Ayton's going to team up with Luka. But then what's going to happen with Brunson? Who knows? So Chris Gonzalez, I do want to ask you really quickly, and it ties into the Brunson stuff as well. Do you feel me on the conversation of this guy hasn't done that much other than the playoffs and we're kind of in the heat of the moment saying this kid's a baller, but in reality, it's kind of that conversation, just like what was his name on the Pacers? Oh my God, he's slipping my mind. He's dropping 50. TJ Warren is the same conversation. TJ Warren's dropping 50 in the bubble and then comes out the next year, and I haven't seen a single TJ Warren highlight since.
Well, he hasn't played since.
Hold on. Guys, before you go, hold on. Mike has got the nerve to talk to me about throwing out that Russell Westbrook. Bro, you literally said something in the beginning, threw out the Zach LaVine in the middle, and then threw something long at the end to try and distract people. I seen what you did.
Hey, Zach LaVine.
I'm like your number one fan on Facebook. Okay, I see you. You're stay on the Zach LaVine, get the hell out of the Bulls train.
Listen, I'm not saying I don't want him on the Bulls. I'm just saying if the situation isn't in my control and he wants out, then that's that conversation of we are forcing our hand to get someone like Jalen Brunson. I would love Zach to stay. I just think at that price, $212 million, I'm not willing to do it. But Gonzo, back to you. How do you feel about the whole Jalen Brunson situation?
No, I agree. I think it's too soon to give him that kind of money. You give a player like him until 2020 was the first time he'd averaged double digits in his career. If you give a player like that kind of money, basically make him your number two, and he, like you said, start like Duncan Robinson has, you're setting your franchise back 3, 4, 5 years because you signed a bad contract with the guy, and then you're going to have to try to get rid of him. I don't think he's been consistent enough, and I don't think we've seen big enough sample size. I think you have to see him for at least another year play like he did this year before I would be willing to give him that kind of money.
Right, for sure. Lennon, how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I feel like he doesn't deserve the $85 million, but I mean, I feel like what would be best for him is maybe like a 4-year, like $40 million contract. That way, they're still able to sign some key pieces to build around Luka, and still are able to become a playoff contention team that can handle a series with Golden State. Honestly, I gotta agree with you, Mike. I feel like a sign and trade Brunson for LaVine would be probably the best move for both, sides. Maybe throw in Powell in a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, I don't know about both sides, but it definitely makes Dallas better. I think
it's definitely a trade.
Yeah, I think it's the Bulls' worst case scenario is ending up with Jalen Brunson. But I might, like Aman said, I might regret that statement in a year from now. He might be like a Jaylen Brown where he just slowly, continuously gets better. But he might be like a Duncan Robinson, TJ Warren, where this is just kind of it and this is the plateau, or just a playoff guy. You know what I mean? Like Jimmy Butler is a playoff guy. A lot of a higher volume. It's definitely that conversation to where we understand what he is and where he's going to come from. So I think Jalen's one of those guys, I look at Rudy Gobert too. You don't want to set yourself up like a Rudy Gobert contract. So it's very overwhelming of a contract, but it definitely is legitimate. And Aman brought up a good point not too long ago. You kind of look at Jalen Brunson and who he is, and I think a shorter term deal. Aman and I were talking about this a few months ago. I could see Jalen doing like a 2-year deal and a pretty solid deal, like a $35 million deal, something like that. Get around 15 a year. I think that's more realistic because a 4-year deal, he's going to say, well, what if I am a top 10 player in the league 4 years from now and I'm getting paid 15 a year? Now, if you do a 2-year deal, it's a little more experimental. You get to see what you really have in Brunson, longevity. But stat guy, for you, how do you feel about Jalen Brunson? And I saw the chat, and you can say that if you want to say that. I'm
ready.
He's today.
I'm not going to say the one word with it, but I do not, on any circumstance, want Jaylen Brunson coming to Chicago, especially if he wants $85 million.
Right.
If Zach LaVine is reportedly as unhappy as he is in Chicago, which it seems like he is, do a sign and trade with Zach LaVine, send him out to Utah, bring in Donovan Mitchell, because all of a sudden Quinn Schneider leaves Utah, and now Donovan Mitchell is not happy. And he wasn't happy with the situation to begin with. He was kind of leaving Utah with a Rudy Gobert or me ultimatum, and now that Quinn Snyder's gone, Mitchell wants out.
Right.
And if I'm going to pay somebody the kind of money that Jaylen Brunson wants, I'm going to go and get Donovan Mitchell, a guy who's proven, a guy who can score, a guy who can do a lot more than Jaylen Brunson can get. And he's going to be getting less money than what Zach LaVine wants. So you can also get Donovan Mitchell plus build other pieces around the Bulls that they needed. So if the Bulls are going to do a sign and trade with anybody, do it with Utah and send Zach LaVine to Utah for Donovan Mitchell.
100%.
That's the sound of a real Bulls fan right there. You just made my nipples hard.
No, it definitely does transition to our next topic, though. And it is Quinn Snyder, stepping down. For you guys right now, and obviously I have been on the get Donovan Mitchell to the Chicago Bulls trade. I do think, though, it's that conversation of we're giving up more than they're giving up. I think you give up Zach LaVine and a Kobe White, or maybe even a future first, not like a two future, but a little bit farther in the future, like a 2026, 2025, something along there. I'm not
give up Zach LaVine and Io in the future first.
No, Io's my dog. That's my road dog. But with that being said,
we'll do a 3-team trade. All right, we'll send Russell to Utah as well.
No, we're good.
We're good. We'll get someone from the Bulls.
We're all right.
Whoever you don't want. I don't care who you don't want. It could be someone that's on the bench that never plays. I don't care.
No, you didn't want DeMar back then. Now you want DeMar. We're good. We're good.
I don't want DeMar.
He wants Caruso back.
I will definitely take Caruso back. I will take him in an instant. That's my defense guy right there. He's like the defense guru for me.
Well, he has become the bald brother of Chicago, the second bald man in Chicago since Michael Jordan to become praised by Bulls fans. So, Aman, though, with Quinn Snyder and Donovan Mitchell's situation, what does that do? Dustin kind of talked about it with Donovan Mitchell's situation, but what does it do for not only the fan base, but Utah as a whole right now? Not more so the state, but more so just the team. Where do you see them going in that direction? Is this a plateau of Rudy Gobert's team and there's no question about it? Or do you see this whole thing just imploding within the next couple of years?
It feels like the beginning of the end, because my initial thought when I saw the report was, okay, Donovan Mitchell wants his guy as a head coach, but he's come out and be like, this is not what I wanted. So now it's almost saying, okay, well, we got to make some moves because Rudy Gobert is not the guy. Donovan Mitchell, we don't have the ability to support him. And maybe they thought he wanted Quinn Snyder gone, but this feels like the beginning of the end. And if you're the Utah Jazz, you got to be very disappointed because you had the opportunity to really build something with Donovan Mitchell here, and they got to find a way to turn it around. They say, look, Donovan, we got rid of Quinn, but you get to pick our next guy. Whoever you want, we'll go get. We don't care if he's been in the broadcast booth forever. He's been sitting at home. It could be the guy at the YMCA down the street. Don't matter. Right. Whoever you want to be our head coach, he's our head coach, and we'll build this thing around you. Now it's the Utah Jazz on their knee making this whole sales pitch of, look, this is the future you could have here. This is the plan that we have. But for Utah now, it's we're in the Shark Tank, and we got to figure out how to get an investment from Donovan Mitchell.
Right. And for me, not biased. We're not going to talk about the Bulls and what happens with Donovan Mitchell, even though that is my dream. It's definitely something to where you look at this kid's age. He just recently turned 25. You have all the potential in the world. And that's why I feel like you will get a lot for Donovan Mitchell, no matter what it is. If it's Zach LaVine, it's not going to be Zach LaVine straight up. It's going to be something special. If it's not Julius Randle, it's going to be something more. It's going to be something good. But with that being said, you look at Rudy Gobert making that $45 million a year, and we all know how the max deals work. It's that conversation of the team you're on. It's not really going to affect you. It's not really going to bother you in that way, because the way it works with that max salary, if it's the team who signed you to it, it's not really going to go over the luxury tax. It's not really going to go over that kind of level. But if you trade Rudy Gobert, then whatever team has to take him, and Frankie, it's the same conversation of Russell Westbrook, that team has to pay a whole $45 million to the cap space. And that's going to hurt. So it really does kind of hurt to that point. Whereas with Utah, like I said, it's that conversation. Even with the Lakers, they're not paying the full 45 when it comes to the cap space. They're kind of just handing them an extra 10. And it's that conversation of, okay, this isn't going towards the cap, but you're earning this. It's like a bonus. But it's kind of hard to trade Rudy right now. So I think you're going to be in a very unfortunate set for the next 3 to 4 years to have that conversation of, once Rudy leaves, we can really start doing something. But until then, we're really not going to know. But Frankie, for you, you're in a very similar situation with Russell Westbrook, except, you do have LeBron, you do have AD and company. How do you feel about Utah and where do you see them going in the future?
Well, I'm going to go back to Amal's point. Like, this situation with them is over. And I feel like it should have been over maybe like 2 years ago. Donovan Mitchell 2 years ago should have probably looked for a trade, looked to go to another team. Spending these last 2 years as I've seen them, they haven't been looking the same. I mean, this is a team that used to be dominant in the playoffs. They were dominant. I mean, they could have made the NBA Finals, but they couldn't because who was always in the way? Golden State. No one's gonna beat Golden State back in the day. Like Golden State back in that time, they were legit. Like
right.
Curry was on fire. But I mean, it's over. Donovan Mitchell, I understand what he wants. He wants to leave. He knows that it's not working with Rudy. He wants to be with another big man. He lost his head coach. He wants to play for someone else. And I understand that every player wants to do that. I have a saying, guys, when you're young in your career, you chase for championships. When you get older, you chase because before you retire, you want to cash out. But while you're young, you want to ring up. And that's what I say. I mean, if I'm Donovan Mitchell, leave your situation, go to a better one. Pull a KD, bro. Literally pull a KD if you want. Leave that Utah Jazz team and go to a superstar caliber team and win a ring. Win a ring, win or two. And if you want, do what KD did, leave and lead another team as long as you get your rings.
Right. I think one of them, I saw one that's a lot more, not more realistic, but I think it could do a lot better for both sides. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and a pick for Donovan Mitchell. And I think it's that conversation of you, like Frankie said, you do need another superstar. You need someone who wants to win a championship. And I love Tyler. I got mad love for Tyler, but he's more focused on the Jack Harlow tour than he is about NBA basketball. So I definitely do think, hey, shout out Jack Harlow, though. Check out that new album. But that boy, spicy. But it's definitely something where I feel like Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Kyle Lowry could get down. I mean, they'd obviously lose a couple of three-point shooters, but I mean, at this point, Duncan Robinson's a DMP and Tyler Hero is not available, and the best ability is availability. I think that's definitely a trade that I'd be willing to do. And like my stat guy said, it would be beautiful to have Donovan Mitchell and DeAndre Ayton on the Chicago Bulls. But I am a Bulls fan of 22 years, and I missed the 90s, so I don't know what glory is. And I don't know what good deals look like, and I haven't seen one in a very long time. So I think that's not. I think that's in Arturus's wheelhouse to pull off. But it's like having a toxic ex, and then she starts to change her ways. I have to see it. I can't just be like, yeah, we can do that. This is gonna work. But Gonzo, for you, Utah, looking at it, what is the bigger picture right now? Do you think kind of firing Snyder is kind of stepping down, I guess is the nice way to say.
No, it's a fire. Be real.
It's a nice way to say get the fuck out of here. But
I got some stats to throw out there, which I don't understand why they even want to fire him, and I will get those stats out later.
Oh, 100%. But Gonzo, for you, what do you see the bigger picture being in Utah right now? Do you think they're going in the right direction? Do you think they even have a direction that they're going in, or do you think they're just trying to please Rudy because they know they can't get rid of him?
I think they're going down the path of a long rebuild. I think the years of seeing Utah being one of the top teams, especially in the regular season. I know they haven't had a whole lot of playoff success, but being one of the top teams in the regular season is going to be past them because now Mitchell's wanting out. He's upset that Quinn's gone. Like you said, I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of Gobert for another year or two because of his contract. So So that could be a hard trade. And if you're stuck with Gobert, I think Mitchell's really going to want to be out because I'd heard the reports that he was saying him or Gobert.
Mm.
I also heard Gobert was saying the same thing about Mitchell, which I don't know where Gobert thinks he has that kind of standing power to be demanding that you get rid of Mitchell to keep him. But no, I think the Jazz are going to be in a long rebuild with this because a lot of it's going to depend on if they can find a head coach
Right.
that Mitchell will be happy with. If they can find a head coach where they can keep Mitchell and somehow figure out how to get rid of Gobert, maybe they won't have to go into full rebuild mode. But the way it's looking right now, it looks like it's probably going to be a complete rebuild.
Right, 100%. Stat Guy, I'm going to let you go off on all your Quinn Schneider comments and everything else you got going on. What's going on in Utah right now, Dustin?
So Quinn Snyder has a .587 winning percentage as a Utah head coach in 8 years. He also has the second most wins in franchise history behind Jerry Sloan, and obviously we know the type of coach Jerry Sloan was. He got him to the NBA Finals 2 straight years, losing to the Bulls both times. Over the past 6 seasons, who has the highest winning percentage in the NBA as among a head coach? Does anybody know?
Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr is actually number 2 because you got to remember he had that one bad year in Golden State.
Right.
Budenholzer's number 1. Steve Kerr's number 2. Does anybody know who number 3 is? Quinn Snyder has the third best winning percentage in the last 6 years in the NBA at .633. So tell me why you are firing a guy that has almost a .640 winning percentage over a 6-year stretch when really you've only had Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell to work with consistently.
Right.
Obviously, the guy knows how to head coach. Obviously, he knows what he's doing as a head coach. And if you would give the guy more talent around Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, he can probably get you to the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. He just has really had only 2 players that he's had his entire tenure there and a bunch of role players around those 2 guys.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, the writing on the wall was Joe Ingles. When Joe Ingles tore his ACL, I kind of said, for me, this was the last dance. If this didn't work out, I felt like somebody was going to go. And I felt like it was that conversation of you just need to break these 2 up. But it's something to where when I really look at this team and I look at what Donovan is doing and how Donovan just continuously gets better year in and year out and is beyond consistent from a 25-point per game scorer, I just think Rudy's the biggest problem. I think without Rudy on this team, I think they're not breaking up. I think if it's any other big man in this league, whether it's Bam, Vooch, or AD or whoever, or even Ayton, it's that conversation of, this worked. This is good. I think this is going to be a solid key piece. But it's just, to me, it was Rudy Gobert the entire time. And I think, Donovan is going to want to go somewhere where, he is praised and he is viewed as financially the highest paid player on that team. I think, Rudy getting paid more than him and getting treated a little bit better definitely does affect him and definitely does bother him. But to kind of wrap up this conversation, I think it's definitely something we need to look at more as the disrespect towards Donovan Mitchell. I feel like Donovan Mitchell's been disrespected, not by the league, but by the Utah Jazz organization, kind of viewing him as Rudy's our guy. But Rudy's only your guy because you paid him like your guy. He's not your guy by any means by a leadership standpoint. Sure, defensive player of the year in 2020 because he shut down the entire league because he wants to cough on a microphone. But other than that, I can't tell you a single thing Rudy Gobert's done since. The guy's not out rebounding people. He's not playing the greatest of defense. And that's just the reality of the situation. It reminds me, and I'm not going to say he's Patrick Beverley, but it's to the point where with his defense, if all you can talk about is his defense, it doesn't mean he's a great defender. It means you're not doing anything else productive. So he's still a solid defender, just like Pride said with Jimmy Butler. I'm a diehard Jimmy Butler fan, but Jimmy Butler is not a top defensive player. He's just not. And that's the reality of the situation. Marcus Smart's that dude, and he's been that dude night in and night out. But Patrick Beverley, Rudy Gobert, then you have Jimmy Butler. They're good defensive players, but just because you think of someone as defensive first, I don't think you should deem them the best defensive player in the league. But we do have 2 more topics. Aman, I don't remember how to say his full name, so I'm going to let you take this one away about the Denver Broncos. I know Walmart's taken over the Denver area, but I don't know his full name.
Well, the Denver Broncos have found their owner. At least that's what the thing was with the initial bids, and he is the heir to the Walmart fortune. His last name is Walton. Rob Walton. There you go. His name is Rob Walton, and he had a bid for $4.5 billion, which is the highest bid to take over any NFL team in NFL history. So, and he's overpaying too, because Forbes values the Broncos at $3.75 billion as well. So, yeah, you're gonna have Walmart in Denver. Hopefully, that doesn't mean Denver is gonna be a Walmart franchise, but Walmart is taking over the Denver Broncos. At least that's how it plays out right now.
100%.
So it's a done deal, because I seen something and I posted up to the group chat as well.
Yeah, again, that's what I just saw as well. The Shefty post where he says second round bids to buy the Denver Broncos are due later today as the process continues to move along per league sources. One source maintained today that despite any speculation, no favorite has emerged at this time. So
100%.
a lot of conflicting reports, but if he's bidding $4.5 billion, which is a whole billion overpriced, I think it's going to be pretty tough to see anyone really take another jump 4.5.
Right. And we do talk about it, though. I think anybody at this point is better than Pat Boylan and what he's doing. You know, it's that conversation of just being cheap and not putting together the roster that you want to put together. You also have an individual, you know, we've had conversations before. You bring in a couple GMs that are very questionable, you know, some that may drink too much or some that are just former players and can be viewed as disrespectful by many individuals in the league. And it's definitely that conversation, though, where I feel like a new ownership is definitely needed. I personally, myself, thought Peyton Manning could sneak his way in there at some point. I was hoping for that, at least co-ownership. I think it would be dope, but I'd still love Peyton as a GM in some time. Frankie, though, how do you feel about it, knowing that the Broncos could actually become spenders rather than just kind of this plateau team that doesn't spend that much money?
Well, first of all, I want to say if this guy does buy the Denver Broncos, I am sorry to all those Walmart employees. You are all taking pay cuts just because all your money is going to the Denver Broncos organization. But that's your fault for working there. Second, I want to say I hope, you know, things changed with the Denver Broncos with this new owner. You know, if he's going to buy this much or he's going to buy the team for this much money, then it just goes to show that he's going to have money. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, money. And that's what players want. They want a big contract. They want to get money. And he can bring in a lot of good talent. The real question is this owner a football guy? I mean, he's a Walmart owner, right? Like he's in charge of Walmart. So
Right.
I can't say for sure. I just have to see that one. If this is a done deal, I have to see that one season on how they turn out. But I can't say for sure because I don't know if this guy's a football man. I don't know if he's going to have the right football mind. I don't know if he's going to do the right thing. With a new owner, what are they going to do with John Elway? Is he going to keep John Elway or is he going to move away from John Elway? You don't know.
100%. Gonzo, how you feel about it?
He can't be no worse than the owner they have now. The way I look at it. And hopefully if he is going to take over, he gets rid of Elway. Like you said, redo that front office. I think that's one of their big problems. They need to redo that front office, get some people in there that get a GM that some of the players respect and that don't have all the black cloud hanging over them like Elway's had over the last year or so with some of the stuff that's came out. I know he has a lot of money, but is he going to be willing to spend the money on the football team? I know he's going to spend a bunch to get it, but is he going to keep putting money into it?
And I think that might take a couple seasons, I feel like. Just because I've never really gone through that myself with a new team other than Tom Ricketts. And when Tom Ricketts took over the Chicago Cubs, it did take a couple years for them to start really spending money on where it matters. And it's kind of understandable. You know, this guy just spent $4 billion, $4.5 billion, and you're like, dude, why aren't you throwing out $200 million deals? And it's like, all right, well, give me like 5 seconds.
Yeah, recoup some of the money I just spent.
Yeah, like give me a minute. Like the way my bank account's set up, it don't work that way. But stat guy, for you, when you look at this and you look at I mean this in the most respectful way because I do respect legends, but John Elway's track record as of late has kind of been viewed as a drunk, as someone who's arrogant, as someone who's ignorant. To be able to kind of have this conversation of new ownership that isn't biased to former players and still sticking with them. Like, let's be completely real here. John Elway, after the instigations with Brian Flores, whether they were true or not, the majority of other teams would have parted ways with John Elway no matter what. Because that's just the way the world works nowadays. No one gets a fair shake, regardless of it being true or not. But for you to see this unbiased type of opinion come into the Broncos organization, how do you feel about it, even especially knowing with Russell Wilson, sorry, Frankie, being your guy?
Walmart's going to start selling a lot of Russell Wilson merchandise now.
100%.
But
and Sierra CDs.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's a good thing for the Broncos organization just because for as bad as things have gone with John Elway the past 5, 6, 7 years and whatnot, that's still a team that's been on the verge of being a playoff team. They've just been missing kind of that one piece, which was a quarterback, and now they finally got that quarterback piece. And now you're bringing in a new ownership group that obviously I don't think can do – I mean, they can do worse, but I don't think they would do worse than what they have now. I think this new ownership group they're going to bring in is going to show the dedication to win. And knowing that they have a lot of the pieces now that they were missing, you're going to see them start bringing in more and more pieces, which they could start turning them into the Broncos of the late 90s and early 2000s again, where they were one of those teams that was always consistently competing for a Super Bowl and consistently making a deep playoff run.
100%. And, I know today was a lot shorter of an episode. I didn't mean to fly through it the way we did, but the kids are in charge. We're a lot faster paced than some of these old folk. Amon and I are doing our thing, man. But we have one last topic, and I kind of want to turn it into a 2-topic conversation. Amon, I loved it, but Baker is a big part of this conversation, I feel like, as well. When you look at the Deshaun Watson situation, I want to go around the horn and just have this conversation really quick. I feel like I got to stop saying around the horn. I'm going to get patented. Because I think that's copywritten. But with that being said, the Deshaun Watson situation and what the NFL and the commissioners are going to decide to do and what the state is going to do, we still don't know, is this a free man or is this not a free man? We have no idea what the situation is because it's so confusing, which it should be. There's 22 women involved. I didn't think it was going to be as easy as, okay, you're good. 3 now. We've narrowed it down to 3, so we're there.
No, 23.
23? All right.
23.
It got worse. But with this being said, you look at the Deshaun Watson situation. What do you think the decision is going to be around the NFL and how it regards, especially with how strict they've been when it comes to domestic violence and stuff like this? And on top of that, we're going to get into it a little bit later after everybody goes around. Baker. Should Baker even want to play for the Cleveland Browns after what they did? If Deshaun Watson decides, or not that he decides, if they decide Deshaun Watson's not playing this year, if I'm Baker, die on that hill because you decided to trade for Deshaun. I'm good. I don't want to. It's kind of like, when your boss texts you and says, man, we're really short-staffed, and you're kind of like, oh, man, that sucks. But good luck with that. Good luck with that, man. Like, today's my day off. They texted me this morning. I was like, oh, man. That's tragic. I hate to hear it, but I'm still here with y'all. So, Amon, for you, how do you feel about the entire thing? And if history continues, do we see a big suspension coming for Deshaun Watson?
I think there's got to be. And this is maybe one of the most important suspensions that the NFL is going to have to make because they kind of botched the Ray Rice situation where they came out with the initial suspension, a lot of outcry, and then try to, do another one. And you can't do that here. I think. And his lawyer came out with the quote that said, I'm fully prepared, and I've always assumed that we're probably going to disagree with the conclusion of the NFL. So I think he's suspecting a suspension. I think we all are as well. I think it's what I would kind of do is, okay, it's going to start at 8 games. And then for everything that keeps coming out, whether if the state finds something or if 1 or 2 or 3, whatever, we're going to keep ticking on games. We're going to keep adding stuff on. I think this has to be a dynamic suspension. It can't just be, all right, here's 6 games because that's what we gave Zeke a couple of years ago. No, You got to start somewhere and then add a couple of clauses saying if this happens, a couple more games here. Again, I don't get paid enough to know how all that stuff works out. But Joe McDonald had a great take on it in our Jawing and Balling episode a couple of weeks ago where he kind of broke everything down. But to me, it's got to be a dynamic kind of suspension because if you lose the court of public opinion here, it's going to be really hard to win back that kind of favor because of how monumental this case is. Going to the Baker side of things, I'm kind of the opposite boat with you, Mike. I would rather, if I'm Baker, I would jump in and try to play because I don't have options at the moment. Here is my chance. If I come in here and say I lead them to a wild card spot, now the Saints could call. Now the Colts could call. Now any of these other teams that I was interested in could say, hey, look, this is a right, whether that is the Carolina Panthers or whoever it is, they could say, okay, here's the guy we want to go after. So for me, if I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm ready to pull the trigger on this and say, okay, if he's out for however long he's out, I'm here, I'm committed, I'm going to try to win because my stock is so low. Anything I can do to help it is going to make me a couple more $1 million down the road.
100%. Frankie, my boy, how you feel about Deshaun?
Yeah, it's real sad for Deshaun Watson. I think he's done. I don't think he's going to play this year, and it's good news for Baker Mayfield. Like Amon said, I mean, if I was Baker, I'll go aggressive right now. I'll say, you want me here? You brought this dude in to take over for me, and now he's going to be out still with the lawsuit, knowing you guys knew what he was going through, and yet you still brought him in. Kind of like rubbing it in my face that you're showing you don't need me anymore. Now you guys actually need me. So I'm going to show you guys what I got. I'm going to do what I can for this team. And best to believe, if I take you guys far, excuse me, I'll say if I'm going to take you guys far, I expect more money. And if not, do the right thing and please trade me.
Right.
Like straight up. Like act nicely and just be like, just trade me. Just that's it. Just
Right.
trade me. Don't be rude about it. Don't be an asshole. Listen, once they brought in Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield should have been requested that trade. He should have been fought for it. He should have been like, look for a team that I can go to. He should have went to Seattle.
No one wants to trade for him, really, Frankie. I think that's the
problem.
bigger issue. He said, okay, the Colts are an option.
Honestly, I don't know what Pete Carroll was thinking. Like Drew Lock over Baker Mayfield, really? Like, come on.
It's a lot cheaper of an option, and I think for them, they don't think Baker could win them games. So
It's a lot cheaper of an option that they can put themselves in them running for C.J. Stroud or a Bryce Young or a Spencer Rattler next year if you don't go for Baker Mayfield.
Oh, yeah, I definitely wouldn't touch Spencer Rattler, though. But
C.J. Stroud. We go C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, I'll go C.J. I wouldn't go Spencer. But Gonzo, how do you feel about the situation? And to kind of tie into what Frankie said, I kind of want your take on it. Stat Guy, you as well. When you look at something where if Baker does perform very well and he does want a bigger payday, how do you multitask that, especially when you're still paying Deshaun's contract as well?
Yeah, that'll be interesting if Baker does play and does good, because in what you're saying, that's going to put the Browns in a tough situation. Are you going to stick with Watson? Because who knows how? I think he'll get suspended at least 6 games.
Yeah.
It could be longer, but I'll say at least 6 games. I think if I'm Baker, you play because, like Amon said, you can raise your stock. Right now, nobody's really looking at you. You go out and have a good year, you can raise your stock, and a lot more teams will be looking at you next year to try to get somewhere else. But I don't know what the Browns will do, because what if Baker comes in, just plays lights out, and then say the Browns are 6-0. Which probably won't happen. But if they're 6-0, Watson comes back from suspension. You have to stick with Baker, right? You can't.
Right.
If you're 6-0, you just don't pull Baker to put a guy in that hasn't played for a year and a half, going on 2 seasons.
Yeah.
100%.
So if I'm, it's going to be a interesting situation to see what the Browns decide to do with Watson after the suspension, especially if Baker comes out and is playing at a high level. If I'm Baker, I'm putting everything into the season if I give him a chance to play,
right?
Because this could be my opportunity to get another starting chance somewhere else.
And not only you're pulling someone out who goes 6-0, but you're pulling someone out who's built a connection with the weapons around him, compared to someone who's been out all those weeks who hasn't built a connection with those receivers and those running backs. So it wouldn't be a smart move for the Cleveland Browns to take Baker Mayfield out after he's playing so well for you guys. I
will say this though, Frankie. There aren't as many connections, I feel like, as a lot of people do now. Obviously, Njoku, obviously Hooper, And the running back, sure, but from a wide receiver perspective, Landry's gone, and Landry was his number one target. Odell, we're not even going to talk about that connection because that was a connection in itself.
Yeah, but now Baker could build a connection with Amari.
No, right, but what I'm saying is him and Deshaun have the same connection with Baker right now. You know, it's that conversation with Cooper. They really don't have a relationship. Either of them don't really have a relationship that we know of that really screams one or the other. So, Stat Guy, for you, if you had to, you know, what are you going with right now if you had to say Deshaun Watson suspension, how far are we looking at this? And what is the Baker situation going to look like? And what do you think his mentality is? Because for me, I know Baker. I know that man's ego. I don't think he's going to want to play for them.
Well, in my opinion, there's a reason why Baker Mayfield hasn't been traded yet. And it's the sole purpose that I think Cleveland might be having buyer's remorse right now, where they brought in Deshaun Watson thinking everything was going to be good and grand. And now they're realizing that he may not even play. So at least keeping Baker Mayfield for this year, you have a guy that's been in that system for 5 years, has that connection with some of the wide receivers and some of the personnel that he still has, where if you are forced to go with him again this year, you still have him there. That brings the question the next year, where if he does play well enough to, I'm not saying make the playoffs, but let's just say Cleveland goes 10-7 and misses the playoffs just because the AFC West is so strong this year, you kind of get put in the position like, well, now we're paying Watson another 3 years. What are we going to do with Mayfield? And I've said this many times before, and I'm still going to stick with it. I think Mayfield ends up in Arizona. I really do. And whether that's because Kyler Murray refuses to play this year, whether that's because he goes into baseball next year, because I still think he wants to play baseball over football at some point, everyone has to keep into consideration that Cliff Kingsbury tried to get Baker Mayfield in college.
Right.
And he was very close to getting Baker Mayfield in college. I have a feeling that if Kingsbury is around next year and Mayfield's available, he's going to do what he can to get Mayfield into Arizona.
You know, that is so crazy that you said that, because last week on Unscripted, I said the same thing. I said I don't mind, and I can't not see Baker Mayfield ending up in Minnesota. Like, I can see him ending up in Minnesota some way, somehow. And that's crazy that you say that. It's that guy's he's like a machine. Like, you don't need a computer to give you your stats. Like, if you see him, he puts his hands on his head and he just gives you his stats. That just goes to show he's a machine of stats.
100%. Before we get out of here, I want to go around one more time, just kind of give your guys' thoughts. Anything you guys got to say, I kind of want to hear it. Aman, what are you feeling right now?
If Boston stops turning the ball over, we'll be just fine. We're riding Jalen Brown. We're riding Jason Tatum. He's going off for 40 on game 3. Don't worry, Celtic crowd going to get him going.
And 12 for game 4, right?
You know what? And that means Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown will have 40. So don't worry about it. As long as we don't turn the ball over, we're going to be just fine. I got Celtics in 7. Not backing from that at all.
100%. Mine, for me, it's still the Zach LaVine train. You know, how I was about fire Nagy, and now I'm just in a place where it's figure it out. There's no disrespect at Zach. Zach's given Chicago everything the last 5 years. So as much as I do talk about Zach leaving, I do appreciate everything he's done. And I do hope we could have a coexistence of either DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Mitchell. But Frankie, for you, my guy, I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, something Russell Westbrook related. But how are you feeling today?
No, I'm not going to go basketball. I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to go to a sport that we haven't talked about. And I'm going to say, how about my Yankees? Damn it. We are on top. We are on fire.
I knew he was going to the Yankees.
We are sexy. I'm so hyped.
Frankie's the most confusing man.
We're coming for the Cubs, baby. We're coming for those Cubs. You guys are coming to New York soon, Mike. And do that. Do that, breathe. I'm gonna be all over your messenger, brother. I'm gonna be all over your messenger.
Don't matter, dog.
Frankie stays confusing me, bro.
Before we go
says, "Oh, sorry. Keep going, Frankie. My bad.
No. What's confusing?
No, like you have a Pats jersey on. You got you're a Lakers fan, then you're a Yankees fan. I just stay lost when it comes to your.
Those are 3 different sports with 3 different teams.
Oh no, that's fine.
You don't see me pulling
I just wasn't ready for you to say the Yankees.
I just feel like geographically
baseball's that number one sport that I grew up watching as a young boy, because I'm Hispanic, Puerto Rican, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and stuff like that. Literally, all we did was play baseball. So like before I knew football, basketball, and all that, it was all baseball. So like as a kid, man, I was always Yankeed up, always from head to toe.
Hell yeah. Gonzo, how we feeling, baby?
I'm feeling good. I want to see the Cincinnati Reds fire their GM, get rid of Nick Kroll.
100%.
We need a GM that's going to get us some relief pitching and not going to trade away all our good players every season.
I agree. I think it's one of those things, you know.
Okay.
You look at Trevor Bauer, Nick Castellanos, Sonny Gray, the list goes on. The only one that's remained is Joey Votto. I don't know his relationship with the GM of the Cincinnati Reds, but they got to be like this because, I mean, Joey's the last.
He hasn't played very good the last couple of years. Yeah, he's playing better this year, but his numbers have been down the last couple of seasons until this year. He's playing better since he came back from his injury.
Hey, y'all definitely got to follow. You got to follow Joey Votto on TikTok.
Oh yeah, he's hilarious.
he's the weirdest dude on TikTok. It's so ugly. It's so ugly. But Statman, my guy, I'm gonna give you the final sound off before we get out of here. Any random stat for the day you trying to throw out?
No, but let's just keep things interesting here, Mike, between me and you this week. What are we betting that Notre Dame knocks off Tennessee in Super Regionals?
My soul. It's not happening. It's not happening, sir. Balls are going off. We going to Omaha, winning the championship. It's not happening, my guy. We can keep praying about it. You can keep hoping about it, but the Fighting Irish, think about to lose the fight, my boy. Think about to lose the fight.
The Super Regionals have been good so far.
Yeah, it's been
baseball over the weekend.
The Vols definitely had me at the edge of my seat yesterday. It was definitely one of those games where I was like, it was just going tick for tack the entire game. College baseball has been one hell of a stop. With that being said, though, before we get out of here, definitely check out In Off the Bench podcast. Daniel Bond, obviously Jim Cross, Randy Jowers, and myself on In Off the Rails on Wednesdays, but In Off the Bench podcast, all streaming platforms covering everything college baseball. Definitely check them out. They are associated with the ASAP network. Definitely check out ASAP in the morning every single day. You see Amon's tag, you can find him on there. You know Frankie C's beautiful face is here every day. Gonzo has an afternoon show. And Stat Guy, you can find Stat Guy every single day, every single place. He is everywhere. And myself, Skytown on whenever I feel like it. And Mike on the mic, really whenever I feel like it, because I have not been doing that in quite some time. But with that being said, I apologize. It is a later, an earlier entrance to our show today. We were a little bit late and we ended a little bit early, but you know, the kids are here. The kids are in town, so we don't have quite that long of an attention span. So with that being said, thank you guys for listening. This is ASAP in the morning. Freddie, we out.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces.